Like many people, my first introduction to Gene Hackman was through Superman. His take on Lex Luthor was different from what you'd expect. Less intimidating muscle, more cunning intellect, and full of charisma. He played the role with a sense of fun, making him as entertaining as he was threatening. Then, there was The Firm. I got it as a birthday gift on VHS, and it was one of those movies I kept going back to. Hackman wasn't the star, but his presence was undeniable. He brought a sense of world weariness that made him more than just a supporting character. He felt real, flawed, and layered.
Like you, I first got to know Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. But if I really think back to the first time I ever saw him, it was probably as the blind man in Young Frankenstein, one of my childhood favorites. As a horror fan from practically the day I was born, I had seen every classic monster movie multiple times, so I knew exactly what Mel Brooks was spoofing with that scene. In other hands, it could have been an over-the-top farce, but Hackman played the scene with heart and sincerity. And as a result, it was absolutely hilarious. At the time, I didn't even know who Gene Hackman was, but his performance was forever burned into my brain and a definite highlight of my movie-watching childhood.
For me, the real turning point was Unforgiven. By the time I saw it, I already knew Clint Eastwood could reinvent the Western. The Dollars trilogy was a staple of my TV watching experience as a kid anytime it came on. But Hackman's performance was what stuck with me in this one. His portrayal of Little Bill was terrifying, not because he was a sadistic villain, but because he believed he was the hero. He thought he was keeping order, and that made his cruelty even more chilling. That role won him an Academy Award, and deservedly so. He didn't play Little Bill as a black and white villain. He made you question whether the so-called good guys were really any better than the outlaws they were hunting.
Hackman is brilliant as Little Bill. He's completely credible as the former gunfighter who's now on the side of the law, a character who might be our hero in a more traditional Western, but is more complicated. He takes it upon himself to demythologize the old gunfighters, to expose them for what they really were, so that no one, including a writer of Old West stories, will ever be able to admire them or glorify them. But in spite of his best intentions, he slowly gets caught up in building his own legend. Hackman brings all the complicated layers of humanity to the character, outwardly strong and effective, but inwardly conflicted, insecure, and vain. His interactions with the writer are sublime. He makes us feel excitement, admiration, fear, and pity. And never does he hit a false note. It's hard to imagine any other actor inhabiting the character of Little Bill as believably as Gene Hackman does. And why would we want to?
As I got deeper into film, I started looking at Hackman's early work. Bonnie and Clyde was one of those movies that reshaped Hollywood. And even in a cast full of stars, Hackman stood out. He made Buck Barrel likable, which only made his fate more tragic. But if Unforgiven cemented my respect for Hackman, The French Connection confirmed his brilliance. His portrayal of Popeye Doyle was electric. It wasn't a clean-cut hero. He was obsessed, reckless, and at times outright dangerous. And yet you couldn't take your eyes off him. He made you root for someone you probably wouldn't want to in real life. That was Hackman's magic. He thrived in the gray areas of morality. Heroes felt like villains, villains felt like heroes. He never made it easy for you to decide who to root for.
Hackman didn't feel a need to be liked or admired by audiences. He was okay being a guy they hated, or at least questioned. In fact, he once said, "Villains are always the best roles." But his best performances were often the ones in which he wasn't clearly good or bad. Much as he did in Unforgiven, Hackman captivated audiences in Crimson Tide as Captain Frank Ramsey, the commanding officer of a U.S. Navy submarine with the capabilities of launching a nuclear strike. Hackman commands the screen as Ramsey, a leader of experience and skill who is respected by his men, but who has a weakness, his almost fanatical belief that he is always right. When he receives an ambiguous order to launch the missiles, he is determined to go ahead in spite of the best efforts of his second-in-command, played by Denzel Washington, to talk him down. Hackman is terrifying because he believes he's on the side of the angels, even as he's about to start World War III. And the fact is that he might be right about his orders to launch, which is scary in itself. But the most chilling thing of all is how believable Hackman is in his refusal to do everything he can to confirm the truth.
Gene Hackman's career spanned over 4 decades. He gave us unforgettable performances, won 2 Academy Awards, and then, in true Hackman fashion, walked away on his own terms. No farewell tour, no endless comeback attempts, just a quiet retirement to live life on his own terms. Though he left Hollywood years ago, his impact never faded. His work remains some of the finest acting ever put on screen, and his influence can be seen in generations of performers who followed.
What are your favorite Gene Hackman performances? Drop them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this tribute, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we continue to celebrate the legends of cinema.